Welcome, everyone. Leviathan Metals recently had a press release about trenching results from the Bosnian property, and they were quite good, but the market doesn't seem to understand the results very much. And in the prior interviews, we focused mostly on the Botswana property. So I'm sitting down with Jeremy Crozier, who is the COO of Leviathan Metals, and he's also a large shareholder in the company, to discuss what these results mean. So, Jeremy, thank you very much for joining me.
Yeah, thanks, Mariusz. Thanks for the opportunity. Good to see you again.
This video has been disseminated on behalf of Leviathan Metals. Yeah, so let's talk about the results to give people more understanding of, are you happy? What do they mean? So let's start with that.
Yeah, sure. Well, we're very happy. So I think one way of looking at this is to just back up a little bit and explain to everybody how we got into this project in the first place. Now, Bosnia, which is part of the former Yugoslavia, actually benefits during Yugoslav times. Really good, robust geoscientific work was done by the government. And if you know where to look and you've got someone who can help you look at that, it's a wealth of information. So from that information, we were actually able to come across this prospect, which is now part of our land holding today, where historic drill results returned 15 meters at 13.25% lead and zinc without any other assays, averaged across 3 holes. We went in on the ground and found roughly where we thought the drill pads would have been. They were drilled a long time ago. They were drilled in the 1960s. But at surface, we were able to recover mineralization. And that mineralization, when assayed, ran double-digit lead and zinc grades, not dissimilar to what I've just shared in the historic drill results. But they were also running up to a couple of 100 grams of silver. So yeah, this was very interesting. Now, at the time, the property was in third-party hands. We were able to acquire it, and that was concluded at the beginning of last year. And having done so, we then set about, and I'm going to change slides here. We then set about doing a regional soil sampling campaign, and that's what's shown. These dots that you see on the map are what we call ridge and spur samples. The ground is quite hilly, so an efficient way of sampling it is to actually send your crews walking along the ridges, taking samples every 200 meters. Now, given that the ridges are all at a variety of orientations, it means that they inherently cross over many geological contacts and structures, and it gives you a good representative picture of what's there. So having completed that, this trend that you see at Maribo there, and I'm just going to mouse over it, began to emerge. Now, this now is the product of infill sampling. So we went from 200 meter spaced ridge and spur samples of the kind that I've just described. We then narrowed that down through a couple of stages to 100 meter spaced lines with samples collected every 25 meters. And this very clear trend emerged. And it's shown here. This map was actually shown in a previous press release. And that historic drill result, or series of drill results that I referred to earlier, is here at the end of this white arrow, very, very approximately. Now, very interestingly indeed, and we're getting onto the crux of things here, it sits at the end of a 2.6 kilometer long trend of elevated lead and zinc in soil that we identified through our program. The next obvious stage was to follow up the better of these soils results in combination. We've got crews on the ground, and we've always had crews on the ground doing really detailed geological follow-up work. So we weren't only basing this on the results of soil geochemistry. We also had some pretty good rock chip data and geological observation. So this past exploration season, we set about doing some shallow mechanical trenching, and that's what we reported, excuse me, in this week's news release. And this map figures in our release from this week. On the right hand side, just starting off with that, you can see our approach. It's a small rubber tracked excavator, very low impact, very easy to get onto the property, and we trenched some of the better soil sampling results. So, and what we reported is shown at the top of this slide, and it was what we reported in the news release. 14 meters at nearly 8% zinc, and that sits within an interval, a broader, lower grade interval, almost twice the size and about half the grade. That's very, very valuable material. At current metal prices, that's over $200 material. And not far away from it, another trench, 12 meters at nearly 9% and similarly hosted within this broad zone. So we can see that there's this kind of mineralization over a strike length of about 2.6 kilometers. That's a very big mineral footprint. That's evidence of a significant mineral system that's capable of creating mineralization over these kind of widths. It's still at a comparatively early stage, but we're now fairly and squarely in drilling territory. We intend to mobilize a drill to this property this season. What we're on the current slide, shown for relative scale purposes, is the lead in soil footprint of now Dundee, previously Adriatic's Rupica mine. And as you can see, the scale's possibly not particularly visible on this screen, although this slide is on our website for any of your viewers who would like to look at it more closely. The length of that lead in soil anomaly at Rupica is about 600 or 700 meters. Our trend is 2.6 kilometers long. So really the inference here is that if you're in the same metallogenic belt, we're only 100 kilometers south of Rupica, in the same age of rocks, in a similar in an arguably comparable structural setting. So there's every possibility that there's a serious polymetallic mineral deposit to be found.
You mentioned that you're ready to use these results and to do drilling. When can investors expect for Leviathan to start drilling this property?
As things stand, we're targeting the second quarter of this year, and let me explain why we see it that way. Firstly, there's obviously we've got the Botswana asset. You touched upon that earlier in this talk. We intend to start drilling that around about March as things stand. So it would be organisationally efficient to then start this drilling not too long afterwards, probably in the second quarter. In the meantime, we've actually got quite a bit of structural mapping we would like to do to add further to support to our targets.
Now, with the Botswana property, you're located next to a very successful property that was bought out by the Chinese company. What about this Bosnian property? Does this have similar characteristics?
Well, Mariusz, the geology is different, but what we're in an area that's never been subject to modern mineral exploration, and this is something that we find very, very exciting indeed. You know, we're 100 kilometers south of a property that recently sold for $1.3 billion in an arguably comparable geological setting. There's no reason we shouldn't be able to find another deposit not too dissimilar to that. We have a very, very prominent land holding. I won't jump the gun on news, but we're looking to grow that land holding. There's definitely growth opportunities in terms of the land holding itself, as well as in the exploration. And so there's every reason for us to explore this property and find something that can be sold on to somebody who's going to start a mine.
When I interviewed Luke Norman, he was talking about the proof of concept will change the valuation of the company, but he was mostly talking about the Botswana. Are we talking about the same thing here, the proof of concept?
Yeah, we are talking about the same thing here. Let's remember that effectively the information that we have and what we've shared so far is two-dimensional, or not much more than two-dimensional. The average depth of our trenches is about 70 centimeters, but ranges up to 2 meters. The next stage of this is to drill in and around these areas of prominent results, and also we're very confident in being able to generate and considerably more targets than just those reported in the release. And that's how you add the third dimension, and that indeed is a proof of concept. So what that will then allow us to do is to flesh out in greater detail what the mineralizing footprint is here, and a bit more about the mode of occurrence as well. And from that, then we will really start to develop a more complete understanding of what's controlling this mineralization, and from there mobilize a bigger drilling campaign.
You originally said that this area hasn't seen modern drilling. Why is that? Why is it so underexplored?
Well, this is all part of the opportunity, Mariusz. If one examines the recent history of this region, originally it was all part of Yugoslavia, and in Yugoslavia, most of the metal supply needs were catered for by the Trepča mine complex, which is in modern-day Kosovo. And nobody, of course, was trying to promote junior stocks. They didn't really need to explore for much more. There was very, very limited exploration. Then you had a very unfortunate and tragic war that lasted quite a long time, and then that resulted in Yugoslavia being split into a number of different countries. Following that, Bosnia split again. Bosnia itself, it has to be remembered, is two sub-entities. We're in Republika Srpska, the Serbian portion of the country. And then subsequent to that, no mineral exploration took place. There were changes in the mining law that were necessary in order to make it easier for investors. They occurred. Further amendments that were also necessary then occurred. And that was only 2 years ago. So the area is wide open and underexplored for those reasons. It's been overlooked and inaccessible.
And how did you learn about this opportunity?
Well, I've actually spent quite a bit of time in neighbouring Serbia on something else that I was previously involved in, and through that built a familiarity with the geology of the region. Established numerous contacts with geologists and people who really understood the administration, and it was through that process and through those connections that we became aware of this I won't even say group of properties, this region that's really essentially untouched by modern exploration.
Okay, do you have any final thoughts about the press release or this property?
Well, what we're seeking to demonstrate in the press release, Mariusz, is that soil sampling done at quite a fine spacing has allowed us to demonstrate this corridor of mineralization over 2.6 kilometers, where we have relatively continuous evidence of mineralization from soil samples. And that overlays very, very well with our own structural mapping, and it also corroborates structural mapping done in Yugoslav times. That gives us a footprint from which we've been in, and we've conducted an initial trenching program. This initial trenching program has returned extremely interesting results. It's really quite extraordinary to be able to go from soil sampling to producing these broad widths at high grades at surface that aren't even drill holes. This is surface mineralization. This is just the top of something that can exist at depth. We need to understand structure, of course, but that's where the drilling comes in. So the comment that I would like to part with here is that we've taken this organically from some ground that we acquired, produced a 2.6 kilometer long trend, added some very significant intervals through trenching, and generated some absolutely outstanding drill targets that really will the next stage will be very telling and allow us to prove that we're in the makings of a new mineral system. What we've managed to achieve in the short time that we've been working on this property is we've demonstrated initial footprint. We've produced a surface geochemical footprint that's 2.6 kilometers long. You can fit by comparison the Vares deposit numerous times over in terms of strike length. We've then gone in within this surface geochemical footprint and done some initial trenching, and several of these trenches have returned results that you'd be extremely happy with if they were drill holes, and they're only at surface, so we haven't even looked at the third dimension yet. So what that tells us is that drilling on this property is going to be really exciting. our trenching has come with very, very ready drillable targets from which to start building the makings of a mineral system that wasn't previously known about in a district that hasn't previously been explored by modern exploration. We're very excited.